Welcome back to another scripture discovery session. We are still in our Proverbs series, and now on the topic of friendship. That's right. The Proverbs speak of the importance of friendship, and we'll be going through different verses that talk about it. As we go through them together, one thing we can be looking for is how the two lines relate to each other. What we've experienced so far is a lot of them are constructed as a contrast, the first line contrasting with the second line, and we want to be looking for those in the Proverbs that we'll be looking at today. And we also want to look for how the first line compares with the second line, the similarities in words, but also the differences. In fact, I would say the differences are what make the Proverbs challenge us to go deeper and to reflect on some deeper truths that aren't apparent in our first reading of the proverb. Hopefully, I'll be able to demonstrate what I am referring to in these Proverbs. And with that, make sure you have the passage printed out before you. Grab a pen or pencil and some highlighters, and let's now engage with the Word of God. Starting with Proverbs 17, verse 9. Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Proverbs 20, verse 6. Many a man proclaims his own steadfast love, but a faithful man who can find? Proverbs 27, verse 6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Proverbs 11:12. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Proverbs 17:14. The beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the quarrel breaks out. Proverbs 18:19. A brother offended is more unyielding than a strong city, and quarreling is like the bars of a castle. Proverbs 20:22. Do not say, I will repay evil. Wait for the Lord, and he will deliver you. Proverbs 28:13. Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. Proverbs 18:24. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Okay, starting in Proverbs 17:9, whoever covers an offense seeks love. We're going to circle the word whoever. So anyone who covers an offense. That's what this proverb is communicating. We're also going to highlight covers, circle the word offense, and circle the word love. We're going to make that a different color because we are going to see that word plenty of times in these proverbs. And now we see a contrast, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. So we're going to highlight repeats and make it a different color because it's a contrast with covers. So one who covers or one who repeats. We will also circle matter, which is similar to the word offense. We're going to underline the word separates, make that red, and also underline the word seeks right above it. So one who repeats a matter separates close friends. Just looking at this one proverb, we can compare and contrast the two lines. We see that covers and repeats initially sound very different, but in general, they're talking about the same thing. So let's just take the word covers and repeats. I think one way that we can look at covering is one who lets go of or forgives, or maybe an idea of passing over an offense, is one who seeks love. And one who repeats a matter, one who keeps bringing it up and will not let it go, it will cause division. And I think the key word in this one proverb is the word love. As Christians, we are to seek love, which means sacrifice is required, meaning we have to be open to being offended and also passing over, giving up, or covering those offenses. That does require sacrifice, and that is the Christian calling when seeking love. Now, the opposite of that would be those who repeat the matter. And so I think that's what is missing in the second line. What is the heart of the matter? Well, love is lacking. What I mean by this is you can take this proverb and look at it like an equation in various ways. What is implying in the first line is the intent of those who cover an offense. They do that out of love. And so what would be the opposite of that in the second line? It's not necessarily mentioned. It shows the outcome that you will lose close friends, but the author doesn't state the intentions or the heart of the matter. So maybe the opposite would be selfishness or bitterness, and that would be the contrast of love in the first line. You can also go the other way and focus on the word close friends, that those who cover an offense, not only are they seeking love, but the outcome is that they will keep their close friends. So again, if you think of this as an equation, for the first line, X would be keeping close friends. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, let's keep moving on. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times. I'm going to highlight a friend and again circle loves and underline the phrase at all times, which is a very powerful statement. Now the second line starts with the word and, so it's equating line 1 and 2 or adding on to the first line, and a brother is born for adversity. Brother is not a contrast. It is equating, I think, with a friend on the first line, and I'm going to underline adversity. Now, there's two different ways to look at this proverb, at least two, and it comes down to understanding the word and. Is it equating? So we see a friend and a brother in a similar way? Or is it an addition to? So a friend loves at all times, but a brother may not love at all times, but he will definitely be around when there is adversity. That's how I would understand it if the word and means addition to. If the word and is used more as being equal to, then I would say a friend is like a brother, meaning the closeness or the kind of love that you can have with another person, which means that that phrase at all times is including times of adversity. I'm just going to add that phrase. That would be the X in our equation. And I think that's what this proverb is emphasizing. What a real friend or a good friend is like. They will love at all times, including adversity. And when they do that, they are acting like a brother, a true friend, a close friend. In other words, I think this proverb is identifying what a quality friend is, or a true friend. And those are the friendships that we would want to seek out. And we also want to be that kind of friend. All right, continuing on. Proverbs 20, verse 6. Many a man proclaims his own steadfast love, but a faithful man who can find? Let me first mark the word but. This will help me understand this is a contrast. I'm going to highlight the phrase many a man. This man is proclaiming, and I'm going to circle the whole phrase, his own steadfast love. Or maybe I should just circle the word own. There we go. I mean, that's the key word in that phrase, isn't it? There's a selfishness, his own steadfast love. And what's the contrast to that? A faithful man. We'll highlight him and underline the phrase, who can find. That phrase, who can find, means a faithful man can be difficult to find. He's a gem or a rarity, whereas the first line starts with the phrase, many a man. So there are many who are seeking their own selfish desires and wants and agendas but a faithful man is a gem, can be a rarity. Okay, moving to Proverbs 27, verse 6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Now, this is also a contrast, but the word but isn't in the line. But it's pretty obvious that it is a contrast. I'm going to circle the word faithful, and the opposite of that is profuse. We're going to underline the word wounds and also the word kisses, and highlight friend and also highlight enemy. So we have the opposite, friend and enemy. What is also in contrast are wounds and kisses, which is an interesting contrast, I would say. And then also faithful and profuse. And if we take this line by line and summarize it or put it in our own words, this is at least what I would come up with. I know I'm implying love, but we've already seen in other Proverbs that that's what a good friend does, is he loves, and he's also faithful, we see in verse 6, but particularly when it comes to wounding. I think it means that sometimes we can wound our friends, but it is for their good. It comes out of care. It may come with words of warning or exhorting or correction. And I think this relates to Proverbs 17:9, because those words of a friend that wound can be taken as an offense. Of course, you're hurt by them. They wound you in some way, which makes us ask the question, what is the response when our friends wound? If they're doing it out of love, when we understand that, it makes it far easier to cover that offense, to overlook it, understanding that God may be using that for our good. Anyways, let's get back to our Proverb 27, verse 6, and the second line, focusing on the word profuse. That's an interesting way to describe kisses. Kisses of an enemy are profuse. They're nasty, definitely unwanted. And I don't know if I quite captured the second line, but we must be careful of words of flattery, or those who just support or go along with everything we do and say. Of course, I'm interpreting the second line based off of the first and understanding what it means when a friend wounds. And I'm writing it as a warning to be careful, implying that the person that is giving you those kisses or words of flattery, it doesn't necessarily mean they're your friends. In fact, they may be considered an enemy because they are not looking out for your best interests. Anyways, I think that's at least one way of understanding this proverb. All right, so let's keep moving. Proverbs 11, verse 12. Again, we see the word whoever and highlighting the word belittles. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense. So I'm going to mark that phrase, lacks sense. And of course, this is a contrast. So I'm going to mark the word but and circle the phrase a man, mark the word understanding, and highlight the phrase remains silent. Hopefully, by how I marked these, you can see the opposites. Belittles compared to one who remains silent, and the one who belittles lacks sense, while the one who remains silent understands. And I think this is a very important and insightful proverb. I would think the opposite of belittling is one who encourages or lifts up with words, but the proverb doesn't do that. It's the one who remains silent. And the quality of the person who remains silent is understanding. And don't we all want people to really understand us? I think this implies the gift and importance of listening. When we listen to one another, that way of remaining silent actually communicates something, that you are a man or a woman of understanding. The gift of being understood. I don't know if I really grasped the intentions of this proverb, but this is the best I could do. The gift of being understood. Have you ever thought of that as being a gift? I know in my own life, when it comes to many of the relationships that I have in the church and in my family. When I feel understood, it's comforting. It's a wonderful gift that I've received. And so how can we give that gift to others? I think that is the question. All right, need to keep moving. Proverbs 17:14, the beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the quarrel breaks out. I'm going to mark the word beginning and the word before. Let's also highlight strife and quarrel. Now the first line is a little unique because now it's giving an analogy. The beginning of strife is like, I'm going to mark the word like, and underlining the phrase letting out water. I think another picture of this is a dam breaking and the water coming out, and basically it's unstoppable. There's nothing you can do about it once it's released. Now the second line, we haven't seen this yet, starts with the word so. And I'm just going to put the word therefore in front of the word so. Another way of saying it is since the beginning of strife is like water being busted out and flowing freely, we should quit before it does break out. I'm going to underline the phrase breaks out. That's what the proverb is trying to say when it gives the image of water being let out. It's breaking out and therefore can get out of control, and it's much more difficult to contain or to fix. Now, with all this marking up, the one word that we need to really focus on is in the second line, and it's the word quit. I think that's the most important word in that proverb. Yes, we teach our children not to quit, not to give up, but there is one area that we need to promote quitting, and that is creating greater and greater strife. And I think we all know how this goes. When you get into conflict with someone, they may say something that is offensive, that hurts you. And the question is how are you going to respond? So one may give a harsh word, which means you might respond back in kind, and therefore they will respond back in kind, and it builds from there. But the call is for us to quit. Quit while you're ahead, before the dam breaks, which leads to ruin. All right, Proverbs 18:19. A brother offended is more unyielding than a strong city, and quarreling is like the bars of a castle. We're going to highlight the word offended and mark the word unyielding. And the word than in the first line is giving a comparison. And we'll also underline the phrase strong city. In addition to, or just like that, quarreling is like the bars of a castle. So the word and is equating. The word quarreling is used, which is in the same category as offended. We also see an analogy being used in the second line. Quarreling is like the bars of a castle. So bars of a castle and a strong city are parallel. I would say that both lines are describing the stubbornness, or the word it's using, unyielding. I think that is the key of this verse. We only see it in the first line. There's nothing representing it in the second line. Well, I guess the bars of the castle, which is the analogy it's using. Again, that's still equated with the analogy in the first line, strong city. But to really spell it out, I think we need to focus on the word unyielding, which I think is a dangerous place to be when you are unyielding, especially when it comes to an offense or conflict with a brother or a sister. I guess the image that comes up in my own mind is the hardened heart. I think when someone is unyielding, in whatever circumstance it may be, we must reflect on the possibility of a hardened heart. Now, that isn't always the case. I think we are to be unyielding when it comes to the gospel, the word of God, what is right in the eyes of God. So there's times when we do have to stand our ground. But we also need to consider that perhaps the reason why we are unyielding which causes conflict and quarreling, is that perhaps we have a hardened heart. Just something to consider. Anyways, we need to keep moving. Proverbs 20, verse 22. Do not say, I will repay evil. Wait for the Lord, and he will deliver you. All right, so it starts with the command, do not say. We'll mark that. What he is saying is, I will repay evil. Instead of doing that, this is the contrast. Wait for the Lord, and here's the truth or the promise. He will deliver you. We'll highlight that as the truth claim. Notice that the first line is words being said. So it has to do with speaking or proclaiming something that is probably deep in the heart and reveals your intentions. On the other hand, when you look at the second line, the call is to wait. So it's not communicating anything or taking action, but to wait. Wait for the Lord. And it's because he will be the one to take action. So it's more of a call to trust in the Lord, rather than taking matters into your own hands. Now let's jump down to Proverbs 28, verse 13. Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. Again, we'll mark the word whoever, which is pretty broad. We'll highlight the word conceals, someone who hides something. This isn't good. Whoever conceals his transgressions, we'll mark that word. And here's the truth claim, or the promise. They will not prosper. Moving to the second line, the contrast, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. So we'll highlight the word confess, and we'll also highlight the word forsakes. Those two words, confesses and forsakes, are in contrast with the word conceals in the first line. I'm also going to mark the word them, just to clearly identify that it's talking about the transgressions in line 1. So those who conceal transgressions will not prosper, but those who confess and forsake those transgressions, here's the promise, will obtain mercy. And what a promise that is. I think what would be interesting is to compare and contrast the word conceals with the words confesses and forsake. When you conceal something, you are hiding it, you're keeping it to yourself, ignoring it, acting like it's not there, compared to confessing, which confessing requires speaking, proclaiming, admitting, acknowledging that it's there. But it's not only confessing, is it? It also means forsaking. That means letting it go, walking away from it, giving it up. So there's an acknowledgement and then there's a letting go, which I think really gives us a deeper understanding of what is really going on when we conceal our transgressions. When we conceal like that, I think it shows that in actuality we are still clinging to those transgressions. And of course, we can move to the result of all this. Those who conceal them will not prosper, where those who confess and forsake will obtain mercy. That is a beautiful promise in that second line, and hopefully that will drive all of us to confess and forsake sin and transgressions. Okay, we are at our final proverb for this session. Proverbs 18:24. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. We're going to mark the word a man, and I'm going to compare that to the phrase a friend. We'll mark that as well. And we probably should have been doing this throughout all the Proverbs we've looked at. I think I've missed a few, but if you jump back up to Proverbs 28:13, we marked the word whoever, and in the second line, it's the phrase he who confesses. I'm just marking that to show the parallel between the two lines. The word whoever is very broad, and it's really pointing to those who are many that conceal transgressions. Then he changes to the singular and describing the individual who confesses and forsakes. I don't think it's that big of a deal theologically or anything of that nature, but I do find it interesting how the author uses words in different ways to communicate his point. Anyways, let's get back to Proverbs 18:24. I'm going to mark the phrase many companions. A man of many companions may come to ruin. I'm going to highlight the word ruin. And the contrast to that is there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. I'm going to mark the phrase a friend and highlight the phrase sticks closer. He sticks closer than a brother. Now you can see the contrast between the man who has many companions and the one who has a friend. Notice what is missing. Actually, what I need to do is change that phrase sticks closer. I'm just going to underline it. The reason why I'm doing that is it's not the opposite of the word ruin. So this helps me understand the differences between line 1 and line 2. The outcome for the man with many companions, at least the possible outcome, is ruin. We don't see the possible outcome in line 2. That's what's missing. But what is the outcome of the man who has a friend who sticks closer to them than a brother? Well, that man is blessed. And I think that is the point of this proverb. It's pointing out the negative results, and by that, it's subtly pointing towards the blessing of having a close friend. So what would you rather have? Many companions, shallow relationships, or do we desire deeper relationships? Which means there may not be many, because deeper relationships take time. But a man who has a friend or a couple of friends who stick close to them, I would definitely say that man is blessed. All right, because of time, I think we should finish up there. I would say the next step that I would encourage you to do is to take some time and look over these proverbs again and come up with a list of qualities that these proverbs are communicating when it comes to a good friendship. Maybe the question is how to be a quality friend, or what kind of qualities do you look for in a friend? And with that, let me encourage you by inviting you to either the Sunday service at Sawyer Highlands, which starts at 10 a.m., or the service at New Buffalo, which starts at 11 a.m. And of course, do not forget we will be having Sunday school class at both campuses before the service. So let me invite you to that as well. And with that, may God bless you this week, and we'll see you next time.